So if we recollect yesterday's information, yesterday we have seen how to import the customers with a customer site user site accounts, and if any errors are there, you can find the errors and from a report, and how to find the statistics from managed data import. Then after we have seen how to import the customer from one more approach, which is upload customer from spreadsheet. There is a separate menu option is available in the building transactions in the customer section. When you click on that, you can have two buttons: upload customer from spreadsheet and download a spreadsheet. Just download a spreadsheet and populate data and upload the customers from there itself, so that you can find the statistics. If any errors are there, when you click on error count, it will download ADF to our desktop. Okay. So when you open the ADF it will open all your error records, and you can correct the records there itself, and you can push the data to the application again. The way you can import the customers in two ways, right? One is the complex process, one is approach. So whichever is required, just you can use the same. This client will take a decision. If the client will not take a decision, just based on your experience, based on your comfort level, just you can suggest whichever is good for you. Okay. Now today we'll see the AR invoice customers. How to import the AR invoices to the application through everyday process. AR invoices. Okay. First we'll try to download the template. Financials, administer. Getting started with file-based data import. Here you can see the receivables. This is the receivables, and this is auto invoice import. The process name would be same as your on-premise system. Nothing is changed here. This is auto invoice import, and this is your template. Just try to download the template. And this is your UCM account, finance, auto invoice, and the import. This is the 4 control files. So we do have nothing but 4 interface tables we do have. This is schedule process name import invoice, whereas schedule process name and your main import process name would be same, which is import auto invoice. And this is your interface tables. Mainly we can use RE interface distribution solve, RE interface line solve. Very rare scenarios we can go for sales credits, and very rare scenarios we can go for AR interface contact solve. Okay. Now today we'll see the 2 interface tables, RE interface line solve, RE interface distribution solve. Okay. Before that, we'll try to create a transaction from UI. How we can create a transaction? So this is our template. Now just navigate to the tools, receivables, in the billing. Create transaction. So I'm trying to select the business unit. So business unit. Something, this is my business unit, and transaction source. Something CGSAM import, transaction type. Yeah, it's automatically populated. Import one. And here I need to get a customer. Customer 8052. Let's try to search the customer. Customer account number is 8052. My customer. And this is the payment terms, the mandatory here, header level. So whichever you want, you can use the payment terms. And this is the currency. If you want to go for the cross currency, just for example, this is my ledger currency. If you want to go for the cross currency, non-functional currency, then currency rates will come into picture here. These are the currency rates, conversion date, rate, and rate type will come into picture from UR to USD. If it is a functional currency, all should be one. This is my transaction date and this is my accounting date. Transaction date, something I am trying to use 2016-15. Since the date is not populated, 2000 periods would be not open. 26th and 15th. And same I can use for. This is my line number, line details, description, something test line, and quantity 10 and unit price 100 something. Okay, so this is my line information. Just try to save this. We will get the distributions here. You want to add the tax information, this is the tax information is available, or you can add a line type as a tax. So as of now, item is here. This is the item type. You can select as a line. So here we are not able to see the line. Here in the actions, edit the distributions. You can see the edit distributions. By default, it will hit your receivable accounts and revenue accounts. Revenue accounts and receivable accounts when you create an invoice based on your transaction source setup. Transaction source setup, your receivables and revenue accounts will be populated by default here. Okay. If you want to provide any code combinations, you can provide here the distributions level, and you can distribute the amount here. How much amount you want to distribute here. Okay. This is how to create an invoice. So here we are not given any invoice number for our transaction here. By default, when you save the work, it's populated 4,000 invoice by default. Nothing but the configuration has been done based on transaction source. The transaction number would be populated at runtime. Okay, this is based on your functional setup. Sometimes we may need to enter your transaction number by user level we need to enter. Sometimes your transaction source level, it should be configured automatically. Okay, the way you can create your transaction, AR transaction. Now we'll see how we can get this transaction source, transaction type, and this payment terms, how we can find. Already we know, right, how to get this customer access. Anyone, how to get this customer access, even though we have business unit access?
Reference data set.
Yeah, you need to add a reference data set against this business unit set. Business unit. If it is common reference data set, by default, you will get a customer access. If it is specific to this business unit reference data set, you need to add that reference data set to your user from manage data access set for users. Okay, this is line information is common. Now we'll see the couple of prerequisites against your transaction. So here, setup and maintenance. transaction sources. Here you can search with one of my transaction source. So this is my transaction source, CG SAM AR import one, which we have been used to create a transaction from UA. So wherever transaction type is manual is nothing but you can use this transaction source. Sorry, this is transaction source, not the type. Wherever transaction type is reference to manual, nothing but you can use this transaction source while creating the transaction from UI. Okay, while creating the transaction from UI, you can get this transaction sources, whichever type is manual. In the same way, you can see the imported. When you see the transaction type is imported is nothing but this transaction source is not eligible to create the transaction from UI. Always you can use this transaction source from your FBA process in order to import the transaction from legacy systems to your Oracle system. Okay. Now open one of the.
Can manual transaction be used in FPDI process?
No, we cannot.
Okay.
We cannot. Only you can use imported one. Again, these transaction sources would be defined based on your data sets here again. If you see here, transaction source set, nothing but it's again a reference data set. For example, if you see CG SAM import, one of imported is there. This is specifically for include corp US set business unit only. This is not eligible for all the business unit. Whereas when you see here, this is CG SAM AR import. This is assigned to common set. Common set is nothing but you can use for any business unit for this transaction source. Just open any one of the manual here. You can see the information here. This is my common set. This is my legal entity. And this is the manual. Here the source defaults automatic transaction numbering here. The reason we are not populating transaction number while creating the transaction. When you save the work, automatically it will, populate your transaction number. Okay. The same way, and open your CG SAM AR import, which is imported one. This is imported one. Here you can see couple of items here. So this is your transaction source set, reference data set. This is source name. This is an active status from date and to date, and source defaults. This is also automatic transaction number is enabled. Allow duplicate transaction number, it's not allowing. This is disabled. And receipt handling for credits, which is refund, something this is function related. Reference field default value interface attribute one, this is we'll see later. And here auto invoice option, this is your FBA options. Auto invoice option, invalid line, reject the invoice. If any errors are there against your transaction line, reject your invoice. This is grouping rule default. Auto invoice, when you import the data from your everyday process, grouping rules will come into picture. Based on the grouping rules, it will group the data for one invoice to another invoice. That is, we'll see later. Accounting date in a closed period, reject the invoice. If accounting date in a closed period in your everyday process, if any data is available such like that, then it will reject the invoice. Allow sales credits. When checkbox is enabled for allow sales credits, then only you can populate the data for your RA interface sales credits all table in interface sheet. Okay. Disable is nothing but it won't accept the data for sales credits. Same way here, the sales credits, this is you can ignore. This is customer. So here import information, this is import information, nothing but how you are going to populate your FBD AR transaction information into SBDI template. So in that, Oracle is saying for customer information, for bill to customer, always you need to populate value, not the ID. For ship to customer, always you need to populate a value, not the ID. For sold to customer, always you need to populate the value, not the ID. The way for accounting information, payment terms, always you need to populate a value, not the ID. Accounting flex fields, nothing but your code combination, always it should be segments, not the ID here. So if you see here, this is your BDA template. This is your ship to bill to customer account number. If it is enabled bill to customer account number enabled with a value, then you can populate here account number value, not the ID. If it is populated with an ID, then you need to populate in a bill to customer account ID. You need to get the value from the table. But in the real-time scenarios, all should be enabled with values only. IDs doesn't make sense. Okay. So do remember, while importing information, you need to verify how they are configured this import information. So based on this, you need to populate the data against your FBDA sheet. Okay. Sometimes if it is populated with ID, if it is enabled with ID, but you are trying to populate a bill to customer value, then it will throw an error, invalid bill to customer account number or invalid bill to ship to customer account number. Like that, it will throw an error, invalid value, invalid payment terms. Like that, it will throw an error. Okay. So while importing the information, just need to cross verify how the configuration has been set up against your transaction source here. Okay. This is your transaction source setup. And the transaction type. So against your transaction type, they will configure your distribution rules based on the business unit. Which account I need to populate by default for receivables and revenue. I'm trying to search one of the this is an invoice. This is transaction source is invoice. Like that, you have debit memos, credit memos, chart, tag, bills, receivables. This is my again transaction types. It is common. Generate bill is yes. Here, if you see here, these are common always. You see reference accounts here. So when you try to populate the data for this business unit, or here you can see all the business units can be configured here. For this business unit, these are your reference accounts: revenue account, receivables account, tax, freight, unearned, unbilled, and auto invoice clearing. This is your reference accounts would be populated when you try to create the transaction. If you are not entered distributions, if you are entered the distribution, well and good. If you are not entered the distribution, by default, these accounts can be populated against your transaction type. Revenue account, receivables account is most important for us. Okay. And here, this transaction type is always accept the amount which is a positive sign. And this is from date and the to date. So always your transaction date should be following these from dates and to dates. Do remember. The reason they will create this transaction type and transaction source date, which is very old date. Okay, and this is open receivables and it can allow post to GL. And the transaction type is transaction class is invoice. The transaction status is always an open status. Okay. So this is the setups. This setup is not required for us. Just you can get the knowledge how the transaction types can be configured. Other than this, we have the payment terms. Sometimes payment terms will not be defined in your system. If it is not defined, if you get any error related to the payment terms, just you can try to search here manage receivables payment terms. Manage receivables payment terms. We have managed payables payment terms and receivables payment terms itself. The reason are is segregated for separate module. Just always you can search with this is AR module, right? Receivables. This is 30 net. This is your common set again, so that you can use for any business unit. This is discount based on invoice amount and 30 net. And this is your from date, which is very old date. And discount basis date, which is receipt application date. Based on the configuration, it will apply your discounts. Relative amount 100, days is 30, and this is your due date, so on. So this is your payment terms configuration. Just you need to verify whether the payment term is exist or not in this setup. If it is exist, still if you're getting an error, nothing but you need to verify whether the from date is falling in your transaction date or not. Okay. Still, if you are getting an error, just you need to verify with your functionality. Mostly, if the transaction, if the payment terms is not defined, you may see this error, invalid payment terms. Okay. So other than this, you know the code combinations, right? How we can verify the code combinations from chart of accounts. You know this bill to customer, ship to customer. If the customer does not exist, you can go for the manage customers and verify the customer. For that customer, the bill to is defined or not, or ship to is defined or not. You need to verify that. And the transaction date, accounting date. For the accounting date, this period is opened or not. How will you verify the period is opened or not? Anyone? How will you verify whether the periods are opened or not?
Manage periods.
Sorry?
Open close periods.
Yeah, where I need to navigate?
GL.
Yeah, the general accounting, you can have this period close. It will applicable for all your finance modules. So this is your general ledger, receivables, projects, and payables. Just try to open the receivables. This is receivables, and okay, I don't have any ledger access. Here something issue with the data access. The reason it's not showing any data here. If you open in your instance, you can see all your ledgers here. Again, it's nothing but you can see the business units here. You can see the open or closed data. Something they are personalized this page. The reason it should be show the LOV here. Someone is mess up this page. Okay. So here you can find your receivable periods. Okay. Now we'll try to populate the same data against your FBDA template, and we'll try to push the transaction from your FBDA template. Before that, we need to verify the grouping rules. So why grouping rules will come into picture is nothing but there is no foreign keys, primary keys, and there is no batch ID concept is not introduced in your FBDA templates, especially for AR invoice template. There is no batch ID template, there is no batch ID concept, and there is no foreign keys and primary keys combination. So here we do have a different mechanism in order to find for there is a line, there is a distribution, and for there is a line, there is a sales credit transaction, and for there is a line, there is a interface contacts all line. So how you are identifying the data from one sheet to another sheet is nothing but based on your grouping rules. These grouping rules don't bother about how these grouping rules can be defined. These grouping rules can be defined by your functional team. And the functional team will tells you this is the grouping rules. You need to populate these attributes in order to identify the invoices or segregate the invoice. For example, here, this is my RA interface line salt sheet. This is my business unit name. This is my transaction batch source name, transaction type name, payment terms, transaction date, accounting date, transaction number is blank, virginal system bill to customer reference here. So Oracle is using here reference values, bill to customer reference and bill to customer address reference. So here reference values is nothing but your AR customer everyday template reference values. There we do have customer reference and CSV and your primary keys and foreign keys columns would be there, right? The values here Oracle is populating. So here, these are reference columns. Along with this reference column, you can find the straight away columns. This is bill to customer account number. And here, this is your bill to customer reference number. So always you can ignore these reference columns. Okay. Just you can try to populate straight away columns, direct columns, bill to customer account number and the site number. The same way ship to customer account number, ship to site number. The same way sold to related information. Okay. This is transaction line type. If it is line, you can use the line. If it is tax, freight, charges, whichever type you want, just you can use this as a transaction line type. This is transaction line description, currency code, and these are currency conversion type, conversion date, and rate. So by default, we need to populate these currency conversion rates. Default values you need to populate here, which is 1. Okay. If it is non-functional currency, these conversion rates and dates will be changed or add against your currency conversion rates. This is transaction line amount, line quantity, and unit selling price. And this is your grouping rules, line transaction flexifield context, followed by the segment 1, segment 2, segment 3, and segment 4. Oracle is maintaining 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 segments, nothing but 4 attributes as a grouping rules. It depends on your functional configuration. Some functional people will use only 2 segments for grouping rules. If you see this data, line transaction flexifield context name is legacy order entry. This would be same for across all the records. And the flexifield segment in 1 is one of the unique value. Segment 2 is also one of the unique value. Segment 3 also one of the unique value. Segment 4 is differentiating for each line. Order line 1, 2, 3, 4, and up to here 30. Up to 30, this is one of the invoice. Up to 30, this is one of the invoice. Okay. This is a grouping rule, how they are maintaining. Your functional team will tell you can populate for segment 1 is the unique value. Segment 2 is always you can use some this for this value. Segment 3 also you can populate a unique value. Segment 4 you can differentiate it a line, each line. So here for this invoice I have 30 lines. Okay. And if you see the next invoice, this is one more context, do context, and this is my invoice 1001, and this is line 1, and this is 3, 4. The same way if you see here, this is INV 1002. The segment 2 is nothing but your transaction flexifield segment 2 is differentiating for each invoice here. For each invoice, they are representing this is invoice number. This is invoice, one more invoice, 1002 is one more invoice, and 1003 also one more invoice. 1004 has 2 lines here. If you see here, 1004 line 1 and line 2. Okay. You see here, these lines can be differentiated. Line type is would be changed here. Line type is line, and the next line type is the freight. Okay, it's a freight. And these are separate invoices they are maintaining. in the for do context. Like this, based on the grouping rules, you may populate your data. For example, this is my line data, right? For the same lines, I want to populate my code combination, nothing but I want to enter my distributions. So how you are enter the distribution is nothing but for the second sheet, followed by the sheets, you need to use the combination. You need to use this combination in order to populate lines for distributions or sales credits or contacts. In order to populate the followed sheets data, you need to use the same combination and try to populate the data. If you see here, this is RE interface distributions, or this is my business unit name. This is account class, whether it could be revenue account or receivables account or tax, receivables, charges, unbill, unearned. Whichever you want, you can use account class. This is amount and this is percentage, how much percentage you are dividend. And this is your transaction flexifield context, nothing but again these are your grouping rules. For the same order line 1 to 30, the line 1 to 30, I have these distributions for each line. This is the order line 1. For the same line 1, I have in the line solve sheet. Okay, this is line 1 distribution. This is line 2 distribution and followed by code combinations. These are your code combinations. That's it. Very simple for distributions table. Code combinations. So how these grouping rules can be defined is nothing but here. There is a manage auto invoice grouping rules task is available. Against the task, the functionality people can be defined this rule grouping rules, and they will try to populate the data from everyday sheet as for testing purpose, and they will share the sheet with us. Manage auto invoice grouping rules. Auto invoice grouping rules. Just try to search. So these are the grouping rules would be there here. Okay. If you see something SK ordering rule, if you open any one of the rule, here they are trying to group the data based on interface line attribute 1 and line attribute 2. This is for invoice. Transaction class is invoice. For credit memo would be same. For debit memo would be same. So for all the transaction classes, the group by options, the group by the data would be 2 attributes here. Interface line attribute 1 and line attribute 2. Okay, this is your grouping rule for one of the grouping rule. So how they are define the context? Context is nothing but they will create the context against your your table name. Manage receivables. Just our customer TRX, just you can verify the table. This is transactions or a customer TRX or table. Just try to edit the same. Here you can find the context, and the context will be linked to your grouping rule. So here manage context. So for my testing purpose, I have created one of the context, which is legacy. Legacy is not there. This is my transaction flexifield context. One is deleted. Deleted, yeah, context. So what they will do, here the manage context, search with any one of the context and edit one of the context here. So here, okay. Let me create one context here. Click on the new. Legacy. Context code is legacy. And just save. Segments can be enabled here. You can add the attributes here. Your name. I did long back here. Segment 1, segment 2. We need two attributes. Segment 1 and character data type. The table column attribute 1 and value set, something we can define. There is a default value that can be we can have. Something you can assign any value set. The range type is not required. The default type is not required here. It should be disabled status here. Display type is text box and it's in a hidden status. Always, in generally, when you create a context on your table, DFS is nothing but it can be enabled on your screen, right? So in this scenario, we are trying to hidden your segment. You are trying to hidden your segment, okay? So that it won't show on your receivables transaction screen. This DFS. Just save and save and close. And create one more attribute. To character. HRC is available. Yeah, like this. HRC 110 something. And this is the hidden. Just save and close. This is a attribute 4, it is mapping. We are trying to map attribute 2. So this is, let me see if any errors are will be there. So this setup will be done by your functional team. So once it is done, you can use this legacy context in my the same here. This is my data here. This is my sample data. This is business unit name. The same business unit we have used for our test transaction. This is batch source name, which is imported source. This is transaction type, payment terms, transaction date, accounting date, and these are bill to customer account number, site number, ship to customer account number and site number, and followed by line type. I am trying to populate 3 invoices here. So how you are segregating 3 invoices? Nothing but here legacy EBS source segment. This is legacy is my context. Segment 1, I am always maintaining only one unique value, and a segment 2 is nothing but this is my, each line can be represented as a separate invoice. So I'm trying to use something, the 1, 202, 203. So this is my 20123 is nothing but this is one invoice, this is one invoice, and this is one invoice. If you want to segregate each line of this 201, I want to display as a 2 lines, then you can make it, this is the EBS source 1 and 2 for the same line 201, so that it will become as a one invoice with the 2 lines. So it depends on your grouping rule. Okay, so this is my, the same way distributions, the same business unit, and 100% amount I'm distributing, and revenue class I'm populating by default, and this is legacy, and followed by the same grouping rules. For the 3 lines, I'm trying to populate 3 distributions.
Yeah, Vijay, one question.
Yes. This is
So basically, one sheet can have different grouping rules, right?
yes, you can.
Okay, thanks.
You can. The way Oracle is defined, right? If you see Oracle sheet here, this is legacy order entry one group, and do is one group. Like this, you can use multiple.
Okay, thanks.
But in the real time, we can always go for single. As my experience, I have used for only single legacy context only. Do not have multiples. Once you are ready with this data, just try to instructions on CSV generate the CSV file. Just try to zip it. So this is my AR invoice file. I have 2 files, distributions and lines. Now, what is the first step in order to push the data to the interface table? What is the first step?
Load interface files for
Sorry,
load interface file for
load interface file for it.
files for input.
So this how interface table will be behavior here is nothing but once your data is pushed from interface table to base table, your data gets deleted from your interface table, same as your jail interface. Here we do not have any identification. This record is successfully here we do not have any identification. This is my data, this is your data. That is the problem with especially AR invoice. We do not have any such identification. The way in the real time, a dedicated user will be work on this AR invoices. We'll see that data. We do not have any identification to segregate multiple users data, especially for AR transactions. Import auto invoice. The data file you can select whichever you have been zipped. Just select the same. This is auto invoice import one. Just click on OK. So it will insert the data into RA interface lines all and distributions all table. As of now, we'll verify RA interface line salt table here. RA interface. Now you can verify here. Try to refresh. The load file to interface needs to be submit 2 times and got succeeded. Now, if you see, these are 3 records I have in a lines table, legacy context. This is my 3 records. So based on your attribute to line 201, 202, 202, these are our records, right? So here, there is a status column would be available. This would be never populated, this status column. This always keep blank. Always blank. This can be never populated in any stage. So not sure why Oracle is maintaining this interface status column. So other than this, we do not have any such identification to segregate this is your data and this is my data in this table. The reason always a dedicated user needs to be work on this AR invoice interface AR invoice everyday process. Okay. Once your data is in your interface table, so just try to submit import auto invoice. Again, it will try to pick the data from your interface table based on your business unit and transaction source. If the business unit and transaction source combination data is available in your interface table, automatically it will pick the data. For example, if 2 users are here, business unit and transaction source and default date is mandatory. So what is your business unit? This is my business unit. And this is my transaction source. This is my transaction source. So now, if for this combination, business unit and transaction source combination, if data is available in your interface table, automatically it will pick the data and process the same for the base tables. For example, if multiple users are imported data to your base, your interface table, but someone is submitting this combination. If this combination is available for the multiple users, obviously those data will be processed without intervention of those users. The reason always a dedicated user needs to be work on this everyday process. Getting right? Everyone. Okay, just try to submit the process. So here itself, there is a child program can be submitted, import auto invoice child. The child program is generate one of the PDF file, which is output for us. The PDF can contain all your statistics. How many records are error? How many records are in a successfully processed? The in detail self-explanatory report can be generated here. Based on the report, you can find your import statistics. Still, if you want to get the information, you can verify the table RA interface error salt table, same as your R12 system. RA interface error salt table can be affected based on interface line ID. You will get the error. Simply, Oracle also write your errors based on this RA interface error salt table to PDF output by using one of the ESA job. The same here we will get. Do we have more data? Yeah, now it is submit import auto invoice successfully completed. Import auto invoice execution report is submitted. And do remember, whether it is success or failure or warning, whatever it may be, always your import auto invoice and execution report status would be succeed status. You can find your errors or success, whatever it may be, on your execution report inside. But if it is errors, but it throw the always your ESL job status in a succeed status, whatever it may be, just it will try to complete the process. That's it. It's never bother about your record success or failure. Okay. Now this is succeeded. Just select ESL job. Here you can find the output here. Just click on the null here. You can see the output. So here, this is transaction source. And here, interface lines 3. Interface distributions 3. Successfully processed 3 and successfully processed 3. So there are no errors here. If you see here, it will give you the total amount, which is 450 and which is USD currency. If it's cross currency, you may see the cross currency data. So this is your report. If you have any errors here in the bottom of the report, you can find the complete error details. Complete error details you may see here. So once you got the error, how will you reprocess? So since we do not have any identification, right, for your table, interface table. So if you want to reprocess, how will you reprocess? Anyone, any idea?
So Vijay, in R12 we have interface correction form. So do we have similar in
Interface correction form? Let me verify. I'm also not sure. Hopefully we do have. So this is create. So we do not have any interface correction form.
Oh.
Okay. So the reprocess mechanism is somewhat different here. So if you have any errors, okay, if you have any errors, immediately need to purge the data. Okay, immediately you need to purge the data and try to reprocess, try to correct your data and reprocess the entire data. Reprocess entire data. If, for example, in this combination, let's assume this record is successfully processed and this record got error out. Let's assume these two are successfully processed, whichever yellow color. The red color record is middle record is an error out. I want to reprocess this record. So for the second iteration, you need to purge your data. So when your record is successful, you can verify your table here once. Now here we have 3 records, right? Just try to refresh the data. These records can be deleted from your interface table. There are no records. So when out of these 3, if out of these 3, 2 are successfully processed, nothing but your interface table data would be remain same for this failure record. Failure record, you can see this data in your interface table. And you don't see any error message against your interface error record. You can find interface error information from your RA interface errors on table. Okay. Since this is an error record, right? Just try to purge the data against your load request ID. Submit purge interface tables. Select import process name is import auto invoice and try to purge the data against your load request ID. Okay. And try to re-import all the data and submit the same main import auto invoice. So what it will do, it will verify if this combination, if already data is available in your base table, it will throw error. This combination is already exists. This combination is already exists. Hence, this record is not processed and this record will go as expected. Okay. Again, in the second iteration, this record is successfully processed and this record is an error out. Since this is already processed first time, right? These 2 records already processed first time. So again, what you have to do immediately? Once this
Purge.
yeah, you need to purge the data so that your interface table become clean, empty, so that you can use for the next iteration. Always do remember for the GL interface, we do have the group ID so that we can segregate the data, no issues, even if you have data in your interface table. Whereas this RA interface, AR invoice everyday process, before working with everyday process, you need to verify if you have any data in RA interface line salt table and distribution salt table and so on. So these 4 tables, simply you need to purge the data for all the load request IDs. Just submit the purge interface table with import auto invoice with a load request ID. It will try to delete all the data from your all interface table at a time. Try to clean the table, empty table, and work on your everyday process so that you won't see any issues. If you have the data, if the same combination data is available as earlier, you are in big circle, which is your data, and you don't, it's not possible to reconciliation from your end. Okay. Okay, no problem. We'll see the negative scenario. As of now, we are importing positive scenario, right? We'll see the same negative scenario in the next session.